If you are planning to fly in 2026 and you have not updated yourself on the new carry-on rules, stop what you are doing and listen carefully. I hear this story almost every week at the gate, but I've always traveled with this bag. Just recently, a 58-year-old passenger named Richard stood at the boarding door completely shocked. He had flown dozens of times. Confident traveler, always packed the same way. No dramatic overpacking, no obvious violations he could point to. What stopped him cold was this. His carry-on was flagged, his personal item confiscated, and he nearly missed his international flight because of one rule change he had no idea existed. He was not being careless. He was simply unaware of the silent policy shifts that have been quietly rolling out across airlines, heading into 2026. New regulations show that one very common mistake, especially among frequent flyers, can result in gate confiscation, force-checked bag fees, security delays, and in some cases being denied boarding entirely. I'm Maria, a flight attendant with over 14 years of experience working international and domestic routes. And in this video, I will explain that mistake, why millions of passengers are completely unaware of it, and the 5 critical carry-on rules for 2026 that every traveler must know before stepping foot in an airport. Before we dive in, drop a comment with your age and where you are flying from this year. Have you ever had a bag flagged or been caught off guard by an airline rule? Write your answer below, because your experience helps our entire travel community. And hit that subscribe button, because I share insider flight knowledge like this every week to help you travel smarter and stress-free. Most passengers believe that if they have flown before without problems, they must be doing everything right. But heading into 2026, that assumption is dangerously wrong. The biggest threat to your travel plans is not turbulence, not delays, and not lost luggage at baggage claim. It is something that has been building quietly across airline policies, TSA updates, and international aviation regulations for the past 2 years. It tightens its grip every time you approach a gate completely unprepared. And by the time most travelers realize the rules have changed, they are already standing at the counter paying surprise fees or watching their carefully packed bag disappear into checked luggage. Here is the problem. These rule changes do not come with personal notifications. Airlines update their policies in terms and conditions pages that almost nobody reads. The TSA rolls out new screening protocols with minimal public announcement. International aviation bodies update carry-on standards that apply even to domestic connecting flights. The passengers who suffer the consequences are the ones who assumed that what worked in 2023 still works in 2026. I saw this pattern with a passenger named Carol, age 62. Retired school teacher, meticulous planner. She had printed her boarding pass 24 hours early, arrived at the airport 2 hours ahead, and packed her carry-on the same way she had for 15 years. What she did not know was that her airline had quietly reduced the maximum carry-on weight limit from 22 pounds to 15 pounds on certain fare classes, a change buried in a policy update email she had deleted unread. At the gate, her bag was weighed, flagged, and she paid $75 in unexpected fees while holding up the boarding line. The new rules had been working against her silently for months across every trip she had taken without incident, simply because she had been lucky with gate agents who had not enforced it yet. Here is what most passengers do not realize. The dangerous moment is not when the rule is announced. It is the months before, when enforcement begins quietly and inconsistently, creating a false sense of safety for unprepared travelers. Bag size violations get waved through 1 week and strictly enforced the next. Liquid rules that seemed relaxed post-COVID are now being tightened again in multiple international airports. Electronic device regulations that seem standard are shifting based on aircraft type and route. Waiting for dramatic consequences often means waiting until you are already at the gate with no options left. Now let us talk about the first critical carry-on rule for 2026, and this one catches more passengers off guard than any other. Rule number 1 is the new dimensional size enforcement with hard-sided gauges at the gate. If you look at most travelers' approach to carry-on sizing, they treat it as a rough guideline. They assume that if the bag fits in the overhead bin on their last flight, it will fit on every flight. But in 2026, that assumption will cost thousands of passengers real money and real stress. Airlines across North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific have begun rolling out physical metal sizing gauges at boarding gates, requiring passengers to physically test their bag before boarding, not just a visual check. A hard-sided metal frame that your bag either fits into or it does not. I watched this happen to a passenger named James, age 47, a sales executive who flew every week for work. He had been using the same roller carry-on for 3 years without a single problem. When his airline introduced hard gauge testing on his regular route, his bag, which measured 1 inch over the new maximum dimensions, failed the test at the gate. He was given 2 choices: pay $65 to check it, or surrender items to reduce the bag's bulk at the boarding door. He chose to pay. That same scenario played out 11 more times that month alone on my route, before passengers started catching on. The new standard dimensions that most major airlines are converging on for 2026 are 22 inches long by 14 inches wide by 9 inches deep, including wheels and handles. That last part is critical. Wheels and handles count. A bag that measures 22 inches to the top of the zipper may measure 24 inches once you include the extended handle housing at the top. Many popular luggage brands still sell bags that technically exceed these measurements when fully packed and expanded. Your bag at home, empty, may pass. Your bag at the gate, fully loaded and slightly expanded, may fail. The key lesson here is simple. Measure your carry-on fully loaded, including wheels and handles, against the specific airline's current 2026 policy before you ever leave for the airport. Do not rely on what the bag's label says. Do not rely on what worked last year. Confirm the exact dimensions on your airline's website within 30 days of your flight. Policies are updating frequently, and the gate is not the place to discover the change. I saw this clearly with a passenger named Diana, age 39, a beauty professional who traveled constantly for work. She knew the 311 rule perfectly. 3.4-ounce containers, 1 quart-sized bag, 1 bag per passenger. What she did not know was that her new solid-to-liquid setting spray, her gel-based sunscreen sticks, and her whipped body butter all now fall under liquid classification at multiple international checkpoints, even though she had always treated them as solids. At London Heathrow, all 3 items were confiscated at the security checkpoint. She had not been warned. She had not been wrong in the past. The classification had simply shifted. The updated 2026 liquid classifications that most travelers are missing include aerosol dry shampoos, regardless of size, if they exceed the 3.4-ounce limit, gel form medications without accompanying prescription documentation, spreadable food items including nut butters, hummus, and soft cheeses in containers over 3.4 ounces, even in checked bag-free carry-on situations, and high-viscosity skincare products, including certain serums, balms, and whipped creams that are gel consistency regardless of how they are marketed. Snow globes remain prohibited in carry-on regardless of liquid volume. Duty-free liquid purchases made at international airports must be carried in sealed tamper-evident bags with receipts visible, or they may be confiscated at connecting flight security checkpoints. The key principle here is this. When in doubt about whether a product is classified as a liquid, treat it as one. Pack it in your quart bag. If it exceeds 3.4 ounces, check it or transfer it to a travel-sized container before you arrive at security. The TSA checkpoint is not the place to debate product consistency with a security officer who has a line of 200 passengers behind you. Now let me walk you through the third critical 2026 carry-on rule. This is the one I warn every single passenger about when I get the chance. Rule number 3 is the new electronic device and lithium battery carry-on requirements that now affect almost every traveler. For most passengers, electronics in carry-on bags seem straightforward. Laptop out of the bag at security, back in after screening, done. But the electronic device regulations expanding in 2026 go significantly beyond laptops and phones, and they carry consequences far more serious than a bag fee. In some cases, non-compliance means your device is permanently surrendered at the gate with no compensation. Tests like battery watt-hour ratings, device registration requirements, and airline-specific electronics approval lists can catch travelers off guard at their earliest stages of preparation, long before they reach the gate. Abnormalities in your packing can be flagged at security before you even reach boarding, giving you no time to correct the problem. A passenger named Kevin, age 55, a photographer, came to me after an experience that still makes me shake my head. He traveled regularly with his camera equipment, including extra lithium battery packs for his professional camera system. He had done this for years without issue. In early 2025, updated IATA regulations reduced the maximum watt-hour rating for spare lithium batteries allowed in carry-on without prior airline approval, from 160 watt-hours to 100 watt-hours for several airline categories. His batteries, at 130 watt-hours each, were no longer compliant without documentation he had never needed before. 3 batteries were confiscated at the gate on an international departure. He had no recourse. Te 2026 electronics rules every traveler must know include the following. Spare lithium batteries must always be in carry-on, never in checked bags, but must now meet specific watt-hour thresholds that vary by airline and route. Power banks over 100 watt-hours require prior written airline approval. E-cigarettes and vaping devices must be in carry-on, but cannot be used or charged on board under any circumstances. And violations carry significant fines. Smart luggage with non-removable lithium batteries is banned from both carry-on and checked baggage on many carriers. Certain high-powered portable chargers are now flagged by updated X-ray detection software and will require manual inspection and documentation at security. I had a passenger, aged 34, who had purchased a brand new smart carry-on suitcase, specifically for her 2026 travel season. She arrived at the airport, proud of her organized, tech-enabled luggage. The built-in battery was non-removable. The airline denied it as both a carry-on and a checked bag. She traveled that day with her belongings in a garbage bag purchased from an airport shop. That simple pre-trip research about battery removability would have prevented the entire experience. Now, let us continue with the fourth critical rule for 2026. Rule number 4 is recognizing the new personal item size and category restrictions most airlines quietly introduced. Many travelers have been completely blindsided by this change because they focused entirely on their carry-on bag dimensions and assumed their personal item was safe by default. In 2026, that assumption is creating chaos at gates across the country. Airlines are now enforcing personal item restrictions with the same physical gauges and gate agent scrutiny that used to be reserved only for overhead bin bags. A tote bag that fits loosely under the seat on one airline may be flagged as a carry-on substitute on another. A backpack stuffed until its seams bulge may technically fit under the seat, but now triggers secondary inspection on carriers that have introduced weight limits for personal items. Laptop bags that once clearly qualified as personal items are being reclassified when they contain external pockets fully loaded with items that add structural bulk. I watched this unfold with a passenger named Patricia, age 51, a frequent business traveler who prided herself on packing light and always traveling carry-on only. She had downsized her roller bag and invested in what the retailer described as a personal item-sized backpack. What the retailer did not tell her was that the bag, when fully packed, measured 1 inch too tall to fit in the new personal item gauge her carrier had installed at gates in January 2026. She was charged a carry-on fee for her backpack and forced to consolidate everything into her roller, creating a size violation there as well. She paid 2 unexpected fees on a 1-hour flight. The clearest personal item guidance for 2026 is this. Your personal item must fit fully under the seat in front of you, with no portion extending into the aisle or the foot space of adjacent seats. The general safe maximum dimensions most carriers are enforcing are 18 inches by 14 inches by 8 inches. Purses, laptop bags, and small backpacks that stay within these dimensions and remain soft-sided when packed are generally safe. The moment you overfill a soft bag until it behaves like a hard-sided rigid structure, you risk reclassification at the gate. Any personal item symptom worth watching for includes straps that no longer compress because the bag is filled beyond flexible capacity, zippers that require force to close, and bags that tip over when set down because they are packed beyond their structural design. These are the signs that your personal item is about to be reclassified as a carry-on at the worst possible moment. Now we come to the fifth and final critical rule for 2026. Rule number 5 is the systematic pre-flight preparation approach that eliminates every carry-on risk before you leave your home. This surprises most travelers because it is not a specific rule or a fee schedule. It is a systematic attack on the root cause of every gate surprise. The carry-on chaos that ruins travel days does not happen randomly. It is produced by a specific set of preparation failures. Relying on outdated information feeds, avoidable violations. Assuming last year's packing strategy still applies, floods gate areas with unprepared passengers every single day. Skipping the airline's current policy page delivers a constant stream of preventable surprises. By addressing these root causes systematically before you ever leave your home, you can eliminate virtually every carry-on risk for every flight you take in 2026. A passenger named Thomas, age 61, had been a nervous traveler for years. He had been flagged twice for bag issues, paid unexpected fees 3 times, and had his liquids confiscated at security more times than he could count. He flew 4 times per year to visit his grandchildren, and every single trip carried a low-level anxiety that cast a shadow over the entire journey. He was not a careless packer. He was an uninformed one. He had never been given a systematic framework for pre-flight carry-on preparation. I had a passenger, aged 34, who had purchased a brand-new smart carry-on suitcase specifically for her 2026 travel season. She arrived at the airport proud of her organized, tech-enabled luggage. The built-in battery was non-removable. The airline denied it as both a carry-on and a checked bag. She traveled that day with her belongings in a garbage bag purchased from an airport shop. That simple pre-trip research about battery removability would have prevented the entire experience. When I met Thomas on a flight from Chicago to Miami, he asked me what he was doing wrong. We talked for an hour. I walked him through what I call the 4-part pre-flight carry-on protocol that I personally follow before every trip and recommend to every passenger I speak with. The first part is the policy verification step. No later than 1 week before your flight, visit your specific airline's carry-on policy page directly. Not a third-party travel site, not last year's bookmark. The live current page on your carrier's official website. Screenshot the current dimensions, weight limits, personal item rules, and prohibited items list. Save it to your phone. If anything has changed since your last flight, adjust your packing plan immediately. The second part is the physical measurement step. Pack your carry-on exactly as you intend to travel with it, fully loaded. Then measure it with a tape measure including wheels and handles. Weigh it on a home luggage scale. Compare those numbers to the policy screenshot you saved. If your bag fails either test at home, you have time to repack, remove items, or switch bags. At the gate, you have no time and no options. Military removability would have prevented the entire experience.